And now, aviation weather around Alaska.
Front pushing eastward, along with an area of IFR, up across the eastern Bering Sea, from the Bering Strait all the way down to the eastern Aleutians into the Alaska Peninsula here. Some IFR making it inland over the Yukon-Kuskokwim Delta area. And as far east as Togiak Bay, marginal VFR to Dillingham. Staying VFR for Igigit King Salmon. Marginal VFR slipping up into Kodiak Island. Good VFR in the interior. A little bit IFR there along the eastern Arctic coast. And areas of IFR here on the southeast coast. Then for the afternoon, marginal VFR for all of the panhandle there up to about Yakutat and right along the eastern North Gulf Coast. Central eastern part of the state, good VFR here from the Kenai Peninsula, Kodiak Island area all the way up to the Arctic coast. And IFR here continuing along the coast, but starting to diminish a little bit there. So pulling back from the inland areas of the Yukon Delta, but still in across portions of the southern Kuskokwim Delta, Togiak Bay, back to the west a little bit. Marginal for the Pribilofs, and IFR with the next system pushing eastward here across the western Aleutians. And then for the morning, Thursday, VFR, central eastern part of the state again. Marginal VFR, a little more extensive here along the North Gulf Coast, Prince William Sound, Kenai Peninsula, and now IFR, bigger area here across Bristol Bay, right on up into the Bering Strait. And some IFR, eastern Arctic coast, building IFR here over the eastern Gulf of Alaska, pushing into the north coast of the Panhandle. And out to the west, a big band of IFR here along the Aleutians, all the way to almost Nikolsky. And then for the afternoon, IFR here, southern Bering Sea, back to the northwest there, just grazing the Aleutian chain. Marginal VFR, that area of IFR diminishing now with just maybe a little bit left around Cape Newenham. Otherwise, pretty good VFR again in the central eastern interior, North Slope Arctic coast VFR. Marginal VFR sliding up into Cook Inlet across the Kuskokwim Valley and then out to the west. And improving here for the southeast coast, becoming VFR there for the Panhandle with the marginal VFR mostly off the North Gulf Coast. Passes Anatufik and Adigan, VFR for the day again tomorrow. For Wednesday, Lake Clark and Merrill, VFR, rainy VFR, windy, another VFR day there. Isabel looking good, VFR conditions for the eastern Alaska Range, including Mentasta. And Tanita, VFR. Portage, same forecast VFR. And Chilkoot, marginal VFR early part of the day, mostly VFR in the afternoon. Freezing levels 4,000 feet here up over the eastern interior, and then 2,000 feet over the northern Panhandle, with 2,000 feet along the Aleutians, here over the eastern Aleutians, then warmer air out to the west. And icing here, next system pushing some considerable moderate rime icing to the far western Aleutians, a break here to the east, and then areas of possible considerable moderate rime icing here along the west coast areas with lighter amounts pushing slowly eastward, and icing free for the central interior all the way down the southeast coast. Jet stream here, pretty good jet, just clipping the southern Panhandle about 120 knots or so. Northeast winds, not too strong at this elevation across the Copper River Basin. Stronger southerlies, though, over the western interior in advance of that advancing front, anywhere from 75 to 95 knots. Strongest up over the western Arctic coast. And then west-northwest winds, anywhere from 105 to 120 knots for the central and western Aleutians. And at 9,000 feet, good west-northwest flow here coming around this low that's tracking northward. So we've got southwest winds or south-southwesterlies here pushing into the western part of the state, 45 to as high as 55 knots for the Seward Peninsula, and even 70-knot winds up over the western Alaska Range. Higher pressure, lighter winds here to the east, and the stronger winds will be south of the Panhandle. And at 9,000 feet, light winds for the southeast coast, Gulf of Alaska, central eastern part of the state, but winds increase heading west here up to 50 knots there into the Seward Peninsula, 65 knots Point Hope, Cape Lisburne area. And then west-northwest winds covering much of the Bering Sea and the Aleutians. Not too bad, anywhere from 30 to 45 knots. Turbulence, look for some isolated moderate turbulence here for the Aleutians tomorrow, and considerable moderate here over the western interior from the Brooks Range right on down into the Kuskokwim Delta.